Of the Brookings Institution. He's the director of the John L. Thornton China Center there. And we saw you on The Heat last week. You were talking about Seattle. You kind of felt like President Xi hit a home run there. Of course, Washington, D.C., there's some give and take with the President of the United States. But he had this address at the UN, his first time speaking there. He covered a lot of ground. I want to get your thoughts. How did he do, and what were the takeaways for you?
Well, he did remarkably well at the personal level. He came out as a leader, is confident, respectful, and humble. And so this is the audience with a lot of head of states want to know him. But as a country, and more than any time before, China now emerged as a global power. China doing the right things on right courses, whether it be climate change, poverty reduction, and gender equality, disabled people's rights. You look at the First Lady's activities. In all these very, very important causes, China wants to play a positive role, constructive role. And now China has money. You know, he writes several checks. He talks about dollar diplomacy or yuan diplomacy. And from third world countries' perspective, from developed countries' perspective, they like this kind of development. And Xi Jinping said also very interestingly, he said, China's vote is always with developing countries. So you can see he finds a delicate balance. In the past few days in Seattle, in Washington, D.C., he talked about major power relations, basically China-U.S. relationship. But now he talked about China's relationship with the many developing countries. So again, he achieved a new kind of delicate balance. And this shows that China's diplomacy reached a next level of sophistication.
There were a couple of passages that kind of jumped off the page for me when I was watching it today. Let's listen to one, and I'd like to get your thoughts on the other side. Let's watch.
The law of the jungle leaves the weak at the mercy of the strong. It is not the way for countries to conduct their relations. Those who adopt the approach of using force will find that they are lifting a rock to drop on their feet.
He also went on to say all countries are equal, small or large, and he said the big, strong, and rich should not bully the small, weak, and poor. That obviously is going to go over well with the developing countries, but the point there, who do you think he's talking to?
Well, actually, he could target a different kind of audiences. When it's domestic audience, talk about China should continue to take Deng Xiaoping's objective, peace and development is the theme of our today's world, just like 30 years ago. China benefits from peace and development. He can also talk about China's neighboring countries, that China will continue the peaceful development. You should not be afraid of. But on the other hand, I think he tried to criticize some of the countries or hegemony that the term now seldom used. But this underlying message is that China want to collaborate with many countries rather to be a kind of a power to challenge the status quo or challenge international order, but rather to reform the international system and to be more constructive to maintain the equality and dignity. And also he talked a lot about sovereignty.
He also talked about this multipolar world, lots of views out there. And one of the things that I find interesting, years ago, the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury at the time, Larry Summers, said he'd rather have a G1 than a G7 or a G8. The United States obviously wants their voice. They want the megaphone. But it seems as though, as you watch today, Iran had a megaphone, Russia had a megaphone, China clearly did as well. Where's the U.S. land in this multipolar world, and do you see a shift there as well as far as more voices?
Well, actually, Obama also had a very good talk. I mean, he emphasized human rights and democracy. I think that also quite well delivered. But Xi Jinping's speech, again, I think from Chinese perspective, it's really fascinating to see China emphasize all this cooperation. And multinationalism certainly resonated very, very well in the United Nations. The good thing is now China has a lot of contribution to make, not only just the money, but also peacekeeping troops and force participation and many other right causes China participate. So that certainly makes China as a well-respected stakeholder in the international system that can carry a long way to how to other countries, especially in Africa, South America, Middle East. These countries look at China.
And Tianwei making the point that China's stepping up with the checkbook, writing the checks, and others kind of falling in line afterwards. Talk to me about their leadership in that regard as well.
Well, again, previously China did not contribute much in the international causes. But because of China's remarkable economic success that now China could afford, and also Xi Jinping is a leader, I think more than any of his predecessors, willing to spend this money to enhance China's influence. Of course, with this kind of participation and China's role will become increasingly important, China also wants to enhance its voice in many causes. China wants to be on the head table in many roundtable discussions about the global issues. So with this kind of money, you can foresee China's influence in the world stage is on the rise. And also, hopefully, that Xi Jinping will stay with his peace and development theme. I think this is really good news for China and also good news for the region and to the world.
Let me, we're just about out of time, but I have to ask you one final question because we saw you after Seattle when he had arrived in Washington, the state visit. Seattle, Washington, D.C., New York, how do you grade the state visit overall?
Well, I think I grade a very high grade, and because this is a very difficult trip. In many ways, that the atmosphere in the United States is not so friendly early on, but because he showed his sincerity, he showed that China will continue to be an open country. China should improve domestic situation and the issues about poverty, education, IT development. Again, the opening of China. And also the fact that China had the purchase list for 300 Boeings also show China remain as a very dynamic market. Now, of course, there's still some cynicism overseas, but domestically, I think the business community, private sector now really uplift their confidence. So it's all about confidence. I think in that regard, he scored extremely well.
All right, Cheng.